All right, good morning and welcome everybody. I am Thomas Norman from California State University, Dominguez Hills, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Los Angeles Government to University Speaker Series focused on careers in engineering at our local, state, and federal levels. It's my honor to introduce a colleague of ours in the CSU system, Dr. Phyllis Nelson. She'll be taking over with the moderation of this program. She has a PhD in engineering from the University of California, Los Angeles, MS from Caltech, BS in electrical engineering from Cal State Polytechnical University, Pomona. She served as her past chair of her department, the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at California State Polytech University, Pomona. She has been the academic Senate chair for her campus and currently is the faculty director of data analytics. Just want to check that others can hear me. Okay. And so with that, we'll pass over the mic, and metaphorically the gavel to Dr. Nelson.
Thank you, Dr. Norman, and welcome everybody. I'm really glad to have an opportunity to connect with everyone and share a lot of exciting opportunities for great careers in engineering. I have to say that I've worked in the aerospace industry and been a researcher at universities both in the United States and France before I started as a professor as a sort of a second career. And I've had a wonderful time with my career, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what everyone else on this panel has got to say. It's a wonderful opportunity, and thanks for joining. What I'm going to do first is ask each of the panelists, I'm going to introduce each of the panelists and then ask them to follow up after their brief bio that they've sent me by discussing some things about what do they do on their job? What is it actually like to do what they do? And some other things. So I'm just going to turn this over to Deborah to tell us about herself and her career for a few minutes. Deborah?
Great, thank you, Dr. Nelson, I appreciate it. So my name is Deborah Weintraub. I'm the Chief Deputy City Engineer for the Bureau of Engineering for the City of Los Angeles. I'm an architect by training. I'm going to share my screen and go through a very quick presentation, which will give those attending here a sense of what we at the Bureau of Engineering do. We do a range of projects. We're a capital delivery organization for the city. This is an image of the 6th Street Viaduct, which is in construction, our single largest project. That crosses from Boyle Heights to the Arts District in downtown. So this is who I am. This is a picture of a pool facility. We do a lot of parks and recs facilities all across the city. So we're a fairly large city. We're the second largest city in the country. We're unusual that we have really a full in-house integrated architecture and engineering organization. And that is unusual for a city, particularly to have architects in-house. We're about 900 people overall, as I said, engineers, architects, surveyors, admin staff. We currently have about 750 projects totaling $6.9 billion. We plan, design, and construct and manage this capital improvement program for the city. And we also manage the online mapping program, Navigate LA, which is the official city record keeper for the public right-of-way for the streets. I'm going to skip the videos because they're too long. Here's a quick look at some of our programs. Almost half the Bureau deals with clean water infrastructure, sewers, treatment plants, stormwater, and this is a very active program. The program that I'm most intimately involved with is the public buildings and open space. I get to work on projects, everything from the ground up. Half my colleagues work on stuff, everything from the ground down. And as I said, we do a lot of recreation and park projects. Our mobility program works on streets and also a suite of bridges. This was a new equestrian pedestrian bridge that was completed a couple of years ago across the LA River. I've had the good fortune to work on the LA River for the 20 years of my career. Engineering services supports all our programs with geotechnical, structural, environmental, clearances, again, full service in-house capital delivery.
We're out here at Lopez.
I'm going to skip that. As I mentioned, we permit the public right of way. So we work on a lot of high profile projects that others are doing, like the football stadium, the Lucas Museum, the Boring Company. Those are also really fun projects to support. And then quickly, some of our major projects, we've done a lot of homeless facilities in the last couple of years. That's that top picture of Bridge Home. I'm going to skip that. As I mentioned, the 6th Street Viaduct. Our team is largely female who is running this project, and the image at the top is our lead program manager, and you see the scale of what we're doing. It's a fully based isolated structure. It's a pretty phenomenal bridge. As I mentioned, I've worked on LA River for 20 years. We've done a lot of work, a lot of different projects, and we'll continue to work on that. I'm going to skip that. Our biggest river project is this 42-acre Taylor Yard G2 project. We're about to start design on a segment of this old rail yard. We do have summer internship program. We didn't do it this past summer because of COVID, but it's a great program for a 10-week internship. These are for younger folks thinking of engineering or architecture for their focus. And then I think we pay people pretty well. You're hired as an entry-level engineer or architect at about $82,500 a year, and every year you see a raise. It's an automatic raise. We are doing career fairs, interviewing on campus to offer jobs, and this is our current lineup. Some have passed, but some are still coming up. Those of you who could participate. The other option for you is you can always go onto the City of LA website, personnel website, and sign up there to be notified of openings to interview to be an engineer or an architect. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, hand it back to you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Boy, it looks like you've had a lot of fun in your career too. That's great. All right, I'm going to go on to Bill Hasenkamp. Bill?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. I have to admit, my voice might be a little hoarse today. I'm a little tired. I did go to the Dodger game last night. It was quite an amazing game. And of course, the first time that the Dodgers and the Giants meet in the playoffs, of course, it has to go to Game 5 tomorrow night. So that's going to be an exciting game tomorrow night. When I was a kid growing up, I would go to the Colorado River Basin as my playground. I would ski at Vail, Colorado. I would mountain bike in Moab, Utah, and I would ride a raft down the Grand Canyon. Now, as an adult, the Colorado River is my work home as well. I work for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and my job is to bring in water from the Colorado River to meet the needs of our region. The Southern California area is dependent on water supply in order to grow, and the only way we've grown as we have is by having a reliable supply of water. Water aqueducts have brought in because we don't get enough rain here in Southern California, and we really don't have any rivers. The Owens Valley Los Angeles Aqueduct was built over 100 years ago. State Water Project brings in water from Northern California, and the largest source of water to Southern California is from the Colorado River Aqueduct. And that's my job, is to manage that supply. All of those supplies have been impacted lately due to drought. And right now, California is experiencing the worst drought in recorded history, hottest and driest year ever last year. And we are having to make some difficult choices on how to maintain reliability. Additionally, climate change is threatening the future of water supplies in all of those regions, as well as increased regulation to protect the environment as the shift is being made to protect those critical environmental resources. So my role and my team's role is to make sure that there's enough water coming through the Colorado River Aqueduct in the face of these cutbacks to meet the needs of 19 million people here in Southern California. To do that, I negotiate agreements with farmers to pay them to not grow crops so that we can have more water here in Southern California. We develop storage programs for the occasional wet years to figure out how to store that water and capture it and bring it in dry years. The team that we have working with me, we have some hydrologic engineers that focus on determining the relationship between snowpack and precipitation and the runoff that goes into the reservoirs. But more importantly is, what does the future hold? What is climate change going to do to the resources of the Colorado River and other rivers in the Western United States? There's climate scientists that have a number of predictions. We have to figure out on our own how we're going to plan for the future in the face of this huge uncertainty. So with the Colorado River, we have to deal with 7 states that rely on the river and 2 countries. So we have to have developed partnerships with Mexico, with the environmental communities, with farmers, and with agencies as far away as Denver, Colorado, 1,000 miles away. We also have a team of agricultural engineers that work on trying to say, well, we have to have agriculture in the future. Most of the water does go to agriculture. We can't dry them up, but can we make agriculture more efficient? Are there new technologies that can keep agricultural growing, maybe application technologies that can keep ag going, but use less water so that we can have more as a growing Southwest region? And finally, things like desalination. That is a promise. We have a huge ocean next to us here in Southern California, but so far the challenges have been too expensive and too many environmental impacts. So we're always looking at ways to improve technology, to lower the cost and reduce the environmental impact. So we're looking for a broad spectrum of talent to help meet the future needs. It's quite uncertain. It's not a textbook type of, you can look in a book and see where the answer is. No, it's figuring out, every year is different, watching the snowpack, watching the demands, understanding agricultural markets, and getting together, brainstorming a plan of how to effectively manage water this year and also how to plan water for future years. So it's an exciting time, especially right now in this critical drought, but it's gratifying knowing that 19 million people are relying on us being successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, that sounds great too. This is a wonderful picture of just how broad engineering is. I think that's wonderful. I'm going to ask Jason Haskins next.
Hi there, good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Haskins from Department of State, Bureau of Diplomatic Security. I'm currently a security engineering officer. Been with the department about 11 years now. As security engineers, we come into the department, get trained up and become members of the Foreign Service, meaning that we live and work overseas, all over at our U.S. embassies and consulates. So in my current position, I'm kind of in our recruiting office here now, not as operational, but we have a lot of change in our assignment. So we get back overseas. When I talk to a lot of students here in recruiting, a lot of students talk, kind of know what the State Department is, and they know that they've seen the Secretary of State on the news, going out, meeting foreign leaders, shaking hands, doing agreements, conflict resolution, aid distribution, but the full State Department mission, helping American citizens abroad, promoting U.S. business interests, and all that work comes out of our embassies by our diplomats. So a lot of people say, why does the State Department need engineers? State Department needs engineers because we have 270 missions overseas. That's U.S. embassies and consulates, a lot of real estate to maintain. We need engineers to help build them. We need facility managers to help maintain them. We need IT specialists to make sure our communications are working. And then security engineers, my position here, we help maintain all the technical security functions at the U.S. embassies. Technical security means locks, alarm systems that protect classified. We maintain access control systems for, the bulletproof doors that you see. We maintain the vehicle barrier systems to make sure, a truck bomb can't drive into the embassies. And a lot of these regulations come from incidents that happened. A lot of people remember the 1988 bombings at our embassies. And there we really saw a lot of security postures at our U.S. embassies change overseas. So really in the Bureau of Diplomatic Security, our core mission is to protect people, property, and information. So again, we're hiring now. We take a lot of different engineers, all different disciplines, from aerospace to civil to mechanical, computer engineering. We take all them and get them trained up and learn about the systems we're using and how we install them, and get them overseas as members of the U.S. Foreign Service. Foreign Service specialists are kind of a little bit behind the scenes. We're not the kind of diplomat that you'll see on TV shaking hands or, working with your ambassador. But we're going to be there behind the scenes, maintaining a safe and secure environment for the diplomats to do their work. We advise our security offices on the regulations. We help out protecting classified information and looking for technical threats. So that's kind of our position overseas. We do a lot of customer service, fixing different things. If the security office calls and says a camera's out, we'll help facilitate the repairs of that gracefully, so that there's not one single point of failure in our systems. Let's see. We have I mentioned research and development. We do we work with other governments as well. We work with other agencies. So we're kind of all over the place. So.
Thanks very much, Jason. And another fascinating career, and I like to travel, so that sounds great. I'm going to ask Elvis Acosta next.
Okay, good morning. My name is Elvis Acosta. I work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center here in Corona, California. And the Corona Division is one of 10 warfare centers that are spread across the United States. So it's kind of easier for me to give you the family warfare center description for you to understand the bigger picture. It's made of an aggregate of about 30,000 employees, primarily STEM-based organization. And everyone handles the maintenance, the research, the development, the engineering associated with the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. So while the warfighters do the implementation and the war fighting, us as civilians, we are behind the scenes, developing, maintaining, designing, and engineering the solutions that the warfighter needs when in theater. And we do that across testing labs, testing ranges, and then at sea as needed by any of those entities. So I've been at Corona for 20 years. In those 20 years, I've kind of worked my way up from being a research and development engineer through being an analyst, and then making my way up to being currently the deputy technical director. And a day in the life of a deputy technical director is kind of working across all the engineering disciplines. Corona has a really broad mission, which is really exciting as an engineer. I get to be a systems engineer one day, I get to be a mechanical engineer another day, like electrical engineer, computer scientist, data scientist, and all of the above underlying pins of being the strategy that we develop for our out year kind of perspective gets rolled in there as a to-do item, the implementation of that strategy, how we're going to support the need for the Navy today, research and developing the solutions for tomorrow. All those elements are kind of tied across all of our capabilities at Corona. And so it's really exciting work. One of those elements that I didn't mention is you really engage with the warfighter. So wherever the warfighter is, we go. So at sea, in theater, stateside, peer side, wherever they are, so that we can understand their environment, develop solutions that are relevant and useful, and then be able to test those solutions. So across the board, large STEM-based organization that really focused on data currently. Our mission has always been on analytics, but now with the new advent of data science and all of the vernacular implementation capabilities of like machine learning and AI, we're fully invested there and really embracing those capabilities and what that can bring forward for something as large as the Navy. So I guess that's what I'll start with. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And now the first is last, but we had some technical issues that it looks like we've solved, and I'm like to ask Valerie Robbins to join us and tell us about what she does for the Air Force. Valerie, we're not hearing you. Are you muted or somehow?
Yeah. Can you hear
There we
me
go.
now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, so I am going to be sharing my screen so that at least you can see a picture of me. So let's see here, screen, share. Let's see, can you see a picture? Not yet. Probably not yet.
We saw it a minute ago and now it's gone.
Oh, okay. But what I did was right then. Okay. Can you share? Can you see it now?
Perfect, perfect.
Hi, my name
Very
is Valerie
creative
Robbins.
workaround.
I had to do something. I said, well, Crystal's showing her picture, so how can I do mine? So anyhow, my name is Valerie Robinson, and I actually work at the Space Systems Command, which used to be the SMC, Space and Missile Systems, Space and Missile Center at the Los Angeles Air Force Base. Now we are the Space Systems Command, so now we have a Space Force. My background, I've been on the campus now since 2007, but my background is a mechanical engineer. I went to Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I graduated in 1984. Since I graduated, just to give you a quick idea of why I even went into mechanical engineering, and really I thought that I could be able to fix my car and not depend on a man, but I realized that when I did mechanical engineering, I didn't learn how to fix the car. I learned how the car operated. So in the same token, I still enjoy what I do. I've worked on programs. I do system safety engineering. Even though I have a background in mechanical, as a system safety engineer, what we do is we basically look at systems and fault them. We find out if there's a hazard, like for example, if there's a propulsion system and something happens with the propulsion tanks or there's a leak, we find out if there's a workaround for that. So I've worked on various different systems. Before I came to the government in 2007, I worked at B-2 on the B-2 bomber. I worked on the F-18 fighter jet. I've worked on satellite communications, military and commercial. I've worked at the launch site, which is the range where they actually launch the satellites, whereas I actually worked at Sea Launch, which was out here in Long Beach, California at one time. And with Sea Launch, what they did was they took modified they took it out to Christmas Island, and that's what they used as a launch pad. And then a cruise ship, and then man, that was by far one of the most exciting experience I think I've had so far. And so what I did was, what I found out was by being in industry, oh my gosh, there were so many companies relocated on me at least maybe even 5 times. And they also either, if they weren't relocating, they were laying me off. So after a while of doing that, my last assignment in the corporate world was working with Boeing, which became United, which moved to Colorado. Well, I have kids that are here and my family's all here, so I wasn't moving to Colorado. So I got the opportunity to actually work for the government. And I have to tell you, I came kicking and screaming. I'm like, I don't know what the government, blah, 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 blah. But what I did realize when I did get the job working for the government, it became a really stable job for me versus when I was out in industry with the layoffs, with the moves of the companies and things of that nature. So my first job, it was SMC, which is Space Missile Systems, Space Missile Center, and now Space, I have to still get used to the new name, Space Systems Command. I worked for the Global Positioning System Director, which is GPS. So you actually use what I work on each and every day to get from point A to point B. And so now, since I've been doing that, not only do I still do GPS, I also work on the induction war program. So we have military satellites that do weather. We do GPS, which is what you use each and every day. Which, believe it or not, those are the ground system as well as the satellites. And so what's so great about what I do is that I get to go to the launch sites and actually see the rockets and see the satellites and see how they integrate within each other. Coming from industry, I was like, my hands were right on the product. So I missed that. And so me being with the government, you still have that same opportunity to do so. So I just, I love what I do. I work with a lot of different areas. I work with reliability people. There's about 5 people that support me. We have support contractors that we work with, all of the Boeings, all of the Lockheed Martins, which are all the people that I actually worked with in industry myself. I still get to interact with them. And so I still get to do the hands-on type of work. But I just wanted to let you know, I really enjoy working for the government. I never knew that it was going to be as rewarding as it has been. I have to say the money is good. You will get more money working for industry. I'm just going to let you know. I just have to be honest with you on that. But what I have found is that the stability is amazing. And with me at Los Angeles Air Force Base, working on the base, you have this sense of community, you have this sense of pride. We're working with the military, and we're their hands-on. We're the people that stay in place when they go, they move to their next assignment. So I am here for any questions, and thank you for letting me be a part of this panel.
Thank you very much, Valerie. That's great also. Mm-hmm. I'm going to move away from as much of a formal kind of a thing and open it up to any of the panelists who'd like to discuss some of these things. I hope all of you will. My questions are, why did you choose to do what you do? What do you find most satisfying about your job? I think a lot of you have already covered that, but if you want to put in some extra plugs for what you do, this is your chance. Did you start out with this position as your goal, or did you find it after doing something else? I think Valerie did a great job of answering that already. And what are the advantages for working in your particular part of the government? So is there anybody who'd like to start on that? All right, Deborah, take it away.
I've been with the city for 20 years, and I kind of came to this almost by accident. As an architect, I started out, you have to apprentice in order to take your licensing exams and to get licensed. I ran my own firm. I worked for other architecture firms. Eventually, I developed an interest in sustainability, and that led me to work for an electric utility. I worked for Southern California Edison for a number of years doing demonstration energy efficiency and sustainability projects. When the position opened up at the city, what intrigued me about it, and it's similar to what Valerie described, is that every day is different. Every day we get to work on a different type of project. And I have colleagues in all the disciplines who come together to design and construct these projects. What I love about my job is that I say this about every project we do, we renovate a part of the city and we continuously renew the city of Los Angeles for all the residents of the city. So I feel a really strong sense of purpose in the work I do. And that's what I think is exciting about working for the organization, the Bureau of Engineering. The other thing we do for young folks is we have a rotation program. So in your first 3 years, you'll get to experience project management 1 year, design 1 year, and kind of engineering services, general engineering services the third year. So you get a pretty good exposure and you can then decide where you want to go. Again, I've been here 20 years. I kind of fell into it, but it couldn't be better.
That's great. Thank you. Somebody else want to jump in? Valerie's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to just say another thing too is that, you know, sometimes you really don't know where your life is going to turn out. Going through all the times where I was laid off and I worked launch and I worked range and I worked satellites and, you know, all of these things, and you wonder, how do you come across, you know, where's the next thing that you're going to go to? For example, you know, I was laid off. I knew I was going to be laid off from United Launch Alliance, and I was training for the Olympics, not the Olympics. I was training for the LA Marathon, and I just knew I didn't want to have to start over again. How can I use all of the things that I've been doing for my next job? And so I'm a person of faith, and so I was so I literally prayed on it on a Sunday. I said, Lord, you know, please, you know, give me something that's going to take my range, my satellite, my launch, all of that experience, and let me do good with it. The next day, I kid you not, the next day I got a call from SMC, which is where I'm working right now. And this person had come to Boeing 2 years before to look at the system safety program. And they called me, says, well, we know you're going to get laid off. Are you going to go to Colorado at ULA? And I said, no, I'm not. Well, we want to get you ready. What do you want? Well, we want somebody with launch, range, and satellite. No, that's you. The very next day. So I was able to use all of that experience that I am out in the industry, working with all of the different deliverables. And now I'm actually in charge of reviewing those deliverables for those same contractors and acquisition, because that's what we do. We acquire products. So that's, you know, you wonder how you go, where you go from here. That's how I knew that that was the job for me. And I have not been disappointed. I started off as a GPS manager, system safety manager, and now I manage all of the production core programs. So, you know, that's kind of how my career has kind of started from there. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that information.
Thanks, Valerie. That's really interesting. Elvis, we'll take Elvis and then Bill. I see Bill has his hand up too. This is great. Go ahead, Elvis.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So having gone to school here locally, I graduated from Loyola Marymount University. My senior year, a good friend of mine convinced me that our local chapter for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers should host the regional conference that year so that we could have our own career fair. So I got an opportunity to really interview aggressively, I'll say, with all of the local major defense contractors in the area. At the time, I had done several years of research with Lockheed Martin, materials research, and I was convinced that my path in my career was going to be materials science and materials research for Lockheed Martin. And what I came to find after I did a series of interviews with recent graduates, I'll say, from Loyola, was they weren't very enthused. They were all, I'll say, a little, I won't say bitter because they were only 2 years out from graduation, but they weren't where I wanted to be in 2 years. And the person I interviewed with from NSWC Corona was 20 years into their profession, full of life, energetic, loved everything they were doing and everything they had been. And ironically, I'm 20 years into my career at Corona, and I'll say I had the very same attitude. And so I stumbled onto working for the government. It was not in my career plan. And what I've really enjoyed about my path for the government is the opportunity. Going in with an engineering degree kind of sets the foundation, but you learn and adapt and grow, and the training is phenomenal. We've established curriculum that spans all of the disciplines. And so you go in with this mindset. I have a mechanical engineering undergraduate degree. Corona paid for my systems engineering degree for my master's. And it's one of those things where you continue to build your skill set. Right now, data science, as I mentioned previously, is huge. So we've all taken numerous courses, and we've partnered with local universities to set up certificate programs. And so you continue to add to your education as you progress, which just opens more and more doors. And I'll say that the best element tied to personal satisfaction is knowing I don't have to be enlisted to help with the defense of our nation, which is really rewarding. Getting to know war fighters on a personal level, helping ensure their safety abroad is also really rewarding. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elvis. Some of what you say about that you start with a foundation reminds me of something that a longtime colleague here who used to be chair of the physics department used to say about getting a physics degree, but I think it's the same about any undergraduate degree. He used to say getting a bachelor's in physics is like kind of like getting awarded a Swiss Army knife. You have a lot of tools and they're really basic, and you have learned just enough to know how to use them, and that's enough to start finding better tools and learning how to use those better tools. So thanks, great point. So Bill, you're next.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So I went to Long Beach State University, and I was a year away from graduation and had no relevant engineering experience and no real idea of what I wanted to do. My grandfather encouraged me to reach out to the city of Los Angeles. So I reached out to the various departments, and I got a job with the Department of Airports as a student. It was an interesting job. I designed the apron striping on the runway and some other road designs at the airport. It was very interesting, but it didn't resonate with me. After a period of time, I transferred to the Department of Transportation. There I did transportation surveys, driveway planning, other types of transportation engineering. And it was very interesting work as well. But it didn't resonate with me either. Finally, I was able to get a job at the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, dealing with the environmental issues of the Mono Lake, of Owens Valley, and the hydrology of trying to figure out the snow melt and the runoff connection. That resonated with me, and I knew at that point that water was going to be my future. I was with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power for many years. I went up to Contra Costa Water District in Northern California for a period of time. And finally, now I'm at the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Offices downtown LA at Union Station, walking distance to Dodger Stadium, I might add. And throughout, one of the things about my position, we hire a lot of consultants that do some great work for us. And I've had many beers with after hours with consultants to talk about the various careers and some of the advantage of the private sector. They say as well, you get to work on a variety of different topics. You can work on a urban water management plan with New York or with Denver or Northern California. You get to understand issues all over. But one of the things that I think that isn't as attractive to them, and what is attractive to me, is at the end of the day, we're the ones that make the decisions. We're the ones in the public agency that have these tremendous assets that we manage. We're the ones that are accountable to the public, accountable to how we spend public money. Sometimes it's tax money. In my case, it's water rate revenue. We're accountable for making the decisions and making sure the action. So the consultants advise us and give us great advice, but ultimately we're the decision makers. And there's no right and wrong answer, right? We have some serious challenges. An earthquake happens and we lose an aqueduct, or a spill, a water quality contamination spills and we have to quickly adapt, or there's a terrorist threat to our water treatment plant. How do we adapt? It's quickly adapting, taking in the best advice we can, no right or wrong answer, brainstorming. We spent hours on whiteboards trying to figure out, okay, what is the best course of action here? How do we do this? What's our budget constraints? What is our technical ability, and how can we succeed? And I think that is what is most attractive to me, is having to figure out in a constantly evolving landscape how to make decisions, knowing that you're accountable for the decisions you make. And ultimately, as I said before, 19 million people rely on us, our team here at Metropolitan, making sure that we can provide them with an adequate and high quality water supply.
I think your passion for what you do really shows in your great Great communicating it. Thanks so much. Jason, your turn.
All right. A lot of people get into the State Department that they've been overseas or previous military careers, and for me that wasn't the case at all. I'm from a small rural town in the Northeast. Never really traveled across the ocean ever. Most foreign travel I could say I had was going on a Caribbean cruise. So really no experience. And I graduated from Wentworth Institute of Technology with a mechanical degree. Had an interest in manufacturing, was doing a lot of machine shop drawings and things like that. And I kind of, was kind of searching out there, seeing what other prospects were out there. And it wasn't until I came down to DC. I know Bill's talking about the Dodgers. I went to go down and see the Boston Red Sox play at Washington Nationals. Went down for a nice weekend. Got down to Washington, could kind of feel the energy of the government careers there. I said, I want to see what the government has for positions. So I went on USA Jobs and typed in engineer, and I was really, kind of interested in, renewable energy or, something with Department of Energy or something like that, which I thought would be more what I would find. And then I found security engineering position for Department of State. Read about it and said, live and work abroad, travel the world, and do these type of projects, and applied. So I feel like the position kind of really chose me. Found myself, joining the department, through the hiring process, and then taking my first ever trip overseas to India, where we opened up a new consulate in Mumbai. So that was kind of how I got my start there. The work itself is extremely satisfying. It's overseas. We're using our engineering skills to really, and again, when I'm talking to students, depending on which degree they have, I'm just saying we want all engineers, because we know engineers can be problem solvers. They can think outside the box. We need to communicate from, a technical concept or technical project to maybe a non-technical person here in Washington who's holding the checkbook for us. So we work to get those projects done, and when it contributes to an embassy goal, the U.S. mission goal, and U.S. government foreign policy goal, because we set up a place and had a safe and secure spot that the U.S. government could work out of. It's extremely satisfying there. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Jason. And, I'll add from my own experience. I started out graduating from Cal Poly Pomona. I got a fellowship I accepted a job at Hughes Aircraft, Space and Communications, and got a full fellowship to Caltech, and started out intending to get a PhD. And Caltech is a small place that, if you don't find the right advisor, is not the right place. So I took my master's degree and realized that this was not going well. I went off and I worked for Hughes Aircraft for about 7 or 8 years. Had a wonderful time, but I actually ended up doing the thing that I hate most about electrical engineering, which was designing TTL digital circuits. I'm really a person who loves math and intricate problems. And I remember the day that I sat down and said, my problem is I'm much more interested in finding out why something doesn't work than fixing it and shipping it. And maybe it's a bad fit to industry. So with that realization, I, in spite of the fact that I had 2 kids and was married and needed to make some money, I went back to UCLA and started a PhD. And I did it working part-time for TRW. It was a wonderful time. I had the opportunity to work with on superconductive electronics, because I happened to be working in the same building with one of the pioneers of superconducting electronics when high TC superconductors were discovered. And they were pulling in anybody with relevant experience to try and help, because there was a flood of money suddenly. I had my specialty is optics and lasers as a research person. That led to a year as a postdoc in Lyon, France. And I came back thinking I was going to work for TRW. 2 weeks before I was getting on the plane to come back, they wrote me and said, keep the job in France. We won the contract and it's for $0. it was too late. So I ended up as a researcher at UCLA and lecturing, and discovered I loved teaching, and ended up back at Cal Poly. So I think what people might take away from this is that every one of us did not start out doing what we're doing now. It takes a while to find your way. Whoops. I want to thank everybody for doing this part. And what I'd like to do now is open it up to see what kind of questions we have from the audience. So in the audience, if you have questions for our panelists, please put it in the Q&A, not the chat. We're using the chat to manage largely to manage the program here. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll go forward from. I'm sorry. Please put it in the Q&A, and we'll go forward from there. We have one. I had a question for Mr. Haskins about what degree of experience is needed or recommended for working as a computer science engineering student. I'm interested in learning more about the jobs and the path students would take in the field. If you have any added information or specific links, please let us know. So Jason.
Let's see, I mean, right now, and what's one thing that's kind of unique right now with our positions is that we don't require 5 years or 10 years of experience, and that, you know, students coming out of school now, graduating in the spring, they're eligible to apply now. So as long as, you know, we have the all our positions are listed on careers.state.gov/DS. I'll type that in here in a moment. So all the information is there, and you can read about which degrees are meet the requirements for the listing. But we're looking for applicants, you know, that are really, you know, interested in living and working abroad. We say that we're hiring you for an engineer, but you're going to be a diplomat. You're going to be overseas. You're going to be closely working. You'll pass your ambassador in the hallway at the embassy. You're going to be working with consular officers who are issuing visas to hundreds of people each day. So you're really part of that embassy community, willing to live and work abroad your way, you know, from some of the comforts of the U.S., depending on where you are in the world. Let's say I did an assignment. I lived 2 years in Africa. So I had a kind of an old house I was living in. It was approved by U.S. government, but did miss some of the comforts of high-speed internet at home. But then on the other hand, I got to travel around Africa, do safaris, travel, and I supported a lot of embassies around the continent, and got some of the trips we got to do were awesome. Working with the team members there. So if you're interested in a career with the State Department, like I said, the vacancy announcements is on careers.state.gov. And I encourage, there's a lot of reading out there about the Foreign Service. Again, it's, you know, we work for Bureau of Diplomatic Security, and diplomat comes first. So you can read about the State Department, read about the history, read about some of the challenges they've had. You can read about, you know, the embassy bombings in 1998 and the lessons learned out of that. Some of the history with the Cold War and how we protect our information better, and how we design our embassies, you know, more to, you know, protect against technical threats. You can read a lot about how the State Department operates, and really the larger mission, and how you can think about how an engineer with diplomatic security can contribute to that. So that's some of the advice I have.
Great. Thank you very much. We had another question. I'm going to broaden it a little bit and ask the panelists to talk about what does the entry-level candidate that you're looking for in your organization look like? I think Jason already talked a little bit about that, but, you know, what are you looking for in the people that you're looking to hire right now? Anybody want to take that on? Elvis. We'll start with Elvis and go to Valerie.
Hey, Dr. Nelson. So broad range of capabilities we're currently hiring. We've actually grown by probably 900 employees over the last 5 years. So a significant amount of hiring, a huge demand for the work being done, and really from entry level to more expertise. across the spectrum is what we're hiring. Now, for this community, I'd say right out of college, we're really looking for individuals that have definitely an established capability, whether that is computer science or engineering or a physicist, a data scientist. We really train on the job primarily. We take your degree in hand, clearly, because that's the foundational element required, but the amount of training done on the job is considerable because everything having to do with the Navy predominantly is classified. So we bring you in, we train you with the ins and outs, and we give you the tool set required. So we're looking to leverage tools you've learned and trained to in school. So whether you're in computer science, learning different languages or Python or machine learning, those are the elements that we'd like to introduce more readily today. But from an engineering perspective, we're looking to leverage, as was previously mentioned by the other panelists, just your train of thought, your ability to root cause problems, to understand processes, to understand algorithms, and to be able to apply those in a different application, in a different environment. But right out of school is the predominant hiring that we're doing right now. So really great attitude, open mind, and a degree. We also have a wide variety of, if you don't want to take on a full-time job, we have apprenticeships, we have internships, we have summer programs. I'll provide those after the fact. The link is a little lengthy. I'll say it now. It's www.navc.mil/careers/navc-careers. But I'll make sure that gets in there somewhere. Thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thanks very much, Valerie, and then Bill.
Okay, I'm going to pretty much repeat what Elvis was saying. As college students, there are various different ways that you can get within the government, especially at SSC, is that we have developmental programs. I've had a summer intern a couple of times. I've had a developmental engineer. And one thing that's great about the summer intern, I'm a proponent for summer interns. While I was in college, I did 3 summers of summer internship in the engineering field on the East Coast. And I just think that it's really, really something that as a college student, you should really look into. And one of the things that the government offers is that there is a full ride for a summer intern. Not only will they pay for your entire school, but they will also give you summer internship, and that summer internship also pays for your housing as well. So it's a really great opportunity. And then there's another one that comes as a developmental engineer, and it's a program that you can get into. And what they do is they do a rotation. So you may be in like production core, which is where we're at the acquisition center. So somebody may be working in the systems engineering section, and then somebody may work in the space section, the different segments that we have. So you can be in there for like maybe 3 months at a time, or maybe 6 months, and then they rotate you. So I think it's like a 3-year rotation program where you get to get into all these different areas and basically see what you like. Like I had a development engineer that came into my organization and did system safety. And then he went to launch, and I was like, wow, you're going to really love launch. I knew at the time when he said he was going to launch, that he was just going to fall in love with launch because, you're working with the rockets and you're actually going out to the ranges and really having your hands on. So, but again, the requirement is that you're an engineer. And they literally, when you put in your resume, you put down your classes, you put down that you are an engineer and what your qualifications are as that is concerned. And then they train you from there because the military, the way the Air Force thinks or Space Force, it's a whole new realm of thinking. So you will be trained on the thought process that we have, the processes that we have. But the fact that you can solve problems is the most important part of what I think your engineer.
Great, thank you. Bill, you're next.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. One of the challenges or maybe even drawbacks of public agencies is that we have a very rigid hiring process. We have to be very, it has to be consistent and limited on the types of questions we can ask, and we can't really vary during the interview. A lot of that is designed to protect various classes. So we have to make sure that we're very careful in our interview process. So generally in public agencies, there's the initial job announcement that has some screening. So you have to meet the minimum requirements, of course. Our HR department will screen out those that don't meet the minimum. So those is if you don't meet any of those requirements, you're out. So that's the first point. And then secondly is then the actual interview. Typically, we have an interview that lasts 45 minutes, that we have a set of questions that we're very limited on any follow-up. So in those questions, you have to demonstrate your value and your competence. Certainly, experience in the water industry or some related industry is a big, huge key. It's not that easy to get experience for a specific job like at Metropolitan. We do have an intern program. We have about 15 to 50 interns that we have, depending on summer and winter here at Metropolitan. We have a total of about 300 engineers working here in the various departments. And during the actual interview, then you have to wow the interview panel of 3 or 4 people and stand out from the rest of the crowd, knowing that most of the background that people have is generally similar, except for maybe some experience, but it's how you think, how you answer questions, showing that you are confident, showing that you're creative and can think on your feet. And if you ever get caught exaggerating too much, that's a big downfall. If someone thinks that you're blowing smoke, then that's definitely a interview killer. So it's really about showing integrity, showing that you can work well with people, that you get along with people, that you're creative, and not just showing that you have these degrees from this college and this expertise on computer science or other factors. Those are important, but to stand out when 10 people are interviewing for one job, you have to wow the interviewers, knowing that they're in there interviewing 12 people over a 6-hour period. They're tired, right? They're tired, just like we've been on this webinar now for an hour. So you have to get people's attention. And so in the interview, you got to remember, these are human beings over there that maybe they're thinking about lunch. So you have to be creative and get their attention and let them know and tell them you're different and you deserve this job.
That's wonderful. And I think that's probably true of any of these job interviews. I have a couple of questions that are specific to panel members. I'm going to take one for Deborah first. This question is, hello, as a mid-career architectural professional with a recently acquired planning degree, are there opportunities with the city? Are most opportunities only for younger grads or also for mid-career professionals?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. I just want to say, Jason, I'm the product of I'm a diplomatic brat. So I grew up traveling all around the world because my father entered the diplomatic service following World War II. So I really do appreciate the opportunities you described. But one of the things that allowed me to experience is just the variety of ways people live and the structures of cities, and it becomes so much more important as we face issues of climate change and species loss, that cities are going to be where most people live. So the work that Bill's doing about providing water is so important, and it's partly what I love about what I do. So the question came from Para. So typically what Bill describes is true for the city of LA. It's a very prescribed hiring process. And what the city of LA does is create, let's say you're applying for an entry-level architectural job. They'll create a list of folks who are ranked after the interview at personnel, and then the departments who have open positions will interview off that list, starting with the highest ranked candidates. Typically, people enter civil service in the city of LA right out of college or a couple of years out of college, but perhaps occasionally positions, because we don't have enough interest, are open to mid-career professionals. So we recently opened the opportunity to interview for a full architect level position, both for internal candidates and external candidates. That opportunity has passed. So what I would urge you to do, Panelists, is sign up for notifications of opportunities with the City of LA website. There are also opportunities. You say you have a planning degree in the planning department, which is a sister department of ours, is also hiring entry-level planners. Even if you have experience and you're a mid-career professional, if you enter with a license and prior experience, all likelihood is that you will advance more quickly in promotion. So I wouldn't necessarily discount entering at a position that might seem kind of below your experience level because you will quickly be advanced. The other thing that Bill mentioned that I would just mention for candidates for these jobs is not only do you need to be creative and you need to be a decision maker, but you need to be able to deal with interacting with the public and explain in layman's terms what you're trying to do. So we really look for candidates who are great public speakers, who can tell us about themselves in a open and personable way. And that's a lot of what comes across through the interview. As Bill said, a lot of people come with the same background. They all have the degrees and they've met the qualifications. So your ability to interact with the public is just key to our success. So I think I've answered your question. So thank you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you. And we have a question for Jason, which is, how long is the training period before you get assigned overseas to an embassy? What type of training is given before going overseas?
Yeah, so after hiring, you come into the State Department and the Foreign Service, and at least we have our Foreign Service Institute where we do a general orientation for a number of weeks there. It's varied a little bit as it's kind of converted to virtual. So I think it's about 5 or 6 weeks in orientation there. And then you'll join the Bureau's orientation. So we have a few classes to get you started to learn the acronym soup, learn about how the organization operates, how the different divisions, how the different offices all kind of, contribute to our full, mission goal of protecting people, property, and information. Depending on for some security engineers, you may get an assignment right off the bat. Again, that last week of orientation, they have a special day called Flag Day, and a lot of the Foreign Service officers get their flag for their next assignment of where in the world they might be assigned. Depending on the timing of your hire date, assignments may line up, or you may be assigned into Washington for 2 years. And while you're in Washington, you'll go through your training, you'll get some opportunities to travel overseas, but you're going to be on the job working with, senior security engineers and other technicians here in Washington just to help contribute and to the offices overseas. But so after some of our DS orientation, we have training where that's a number of, about 3 or 4 months, depending on the timing, is for, where we're going to actually have you in our classrooms wiring up alarm systems, wiring up badge readers and access control systems, programming security cameras, doing all that type of stuff. Now we're also, even myself as a mechanical, I didn't really have an IT background, and now we're training everybody to be, to get your CompTIA Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus. Because now all of our camera systems are no longer analog systems that we're in the digital world now, and everything's IP addressed. So we need to make sure that we're configuring everything and programming everything correctly and everything secure, so you can't just tap into it there. So that's become part of the training. We also do training for 3 months with other government agencies for classified training. So we take care of that, and then you're pretty much ready for overseas. It just depends on when you get hired, depending if you're going to be in Washington for about a 2-year assignment before you go overseas. So that kind of varies on case by case per hiring session. So thank you for the question.
And we have one more question for Jason, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll come to Bill. So we have a question from Kenny Perez that says, what does the ideal entry-level civil engineering candidate look like?
say we take all engineering degrees. It's for ideal civil engineering. We want you to be, ready to go live and work overseas and really apply your engineering skills, the fundamentals to this new position. I can say that, for a civil engineer joining the department as a security engineer, we're not going to, have you doing, major construction projects or bridges and typical, a lot of that civil engineering work was construction. But we're going to be, saying here's an alarm system, low voltage alarm system. We need you to wire up. So you need to be able to adapt to that kind of change. But again, it's the fundamental engineering skills of problem solving and communication. And, we're hiring all engineers because they can think on their feet and develop different solutions. Communicate, write a memo, put together a bill of materials, plan out a project, and and figure out what kind of resources you have and how long it'll take you to do it. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Those nothing specific to civil, but just overall just engineering skills. So that's why we accept all the different majors.
Thank you. Bill, your turn to weigh in here.
Thank you. And just following up on some of the statements Deborah made, and as well as Elvis, and I guess the whole panel, is generally public agencies protect their employees. They value their employees, they protect them. Layoffs are very uncommon. And so when there's promotional opportunities within a company, generally they go to their employees first. So if you're looking at working for the City of Los Angeles, the Metropolitan Water District, or some other public agency, maybe the ideal job isn't being posted. Maybe it's in you really want to work over here on something, but you'll take this other job is being posted. Once you're in, then you have a much better chance of moving around, laterally transferring. We heard about some agencies have a design rotational program where you will rotate. But even if not, the ability to move around within a company is much easier than going in from the outside into an ideal job. So even if the job that is posted isn't exactly what you're looking for, I would encourage you to consider that. And then after a year or two, there are opportunities to move around. You've heard from all of this panel that we have moved around within our companies and outside of companies, but generally it's much easier once you're in, especially a large place like the City of LA or the Metropolitan Water District, to move around and you'll find an ideal fit. Much easier than coming in from the outside is my experience.
Thanks very much. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Remember, please put them in the Q&A. Elvis, go ahead.
Thanks, Dr. Nelson. I just want to add on quickly to what Bill just said. So I'm currently on my 7th different position by title at Corona, and just by awareness, by mentorship of others, having made me aware of different opportunities that match my skill sets. So totally agree that getting your foot in the door and establishing yourself, and then being open to other opportunities as opposed to what you perceive yourself wanting and desiring is kind of a critical element to your own career. The other thing I'll add on is I think definitely, and plug for LinkedIn, though I have no investment in the company, I think is really important, getting tied to social media, following organizations, finding out if you can host unofficial interviews with folks that work there, getting their advocacy and their inside perspective, I think adds a tremendous amount of value to you understanding organizations by their values and by the employees that are out there externally facing. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I have a question for the panelists here. For people who are in the audience here who are probably considering looking for a first job, how important is it to really understand the organization that you're applying to? How much difference does that make in the application process and in the especially in the interview process? What are you looking for there? Bill?
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference when you're interviewing someone who has done their homework. And if they don't know anything about the company that they're interviewing for, then that is like they ask basic questions, because at the end of the interview, is there anything, there's generally a question, you have anything that you like to ask us. And if they ask basic questions about the company, that's a pretty big mark downward. But if they come in and show that they're been proactive, yeah, I looked at your company's website, I talked to some employees, I understand you do this, and how does this work, and ask some intelligent questions about the company and about some of the issues that they're facing, I think that goes a long ways to the to help in the interview process.
Thanks, Deborah.
I seem to just be reiterating what Bill says, but you know, with the internet, you can learn a lot. And if you didn't take the half hour to do a little research and come in informed, it really is a check off your interview. If you can come in with one or two intelligent questions of things that you saw on the website that interested you, makes a huge difference. Makes the panel remember you. Makes them think that you're going to come in enthusiastic about the work of the organization. So it's really important to come in informed.
Thank you. I think I'm kind of running out of questions. We have a lot of people out there. Come on, folks. This is your chance. You have all of these wonderful experts to ask. Elvis, go ahead.
I guess I'll add on to your question, Dr. Nelson. So I think it's critical to understand the organization. So for my own organization, right, we're very military focused, which means we engage with the military. And so we're not really laissez-faire in terms of engaging with military and being off the cuff, right? So being able to brief admirals at the 4-star level, engaging with personnel across the Pentagon, it becomes very important for you to understand etiquette, protocol, and how the organizational hierarchy is across the command and across organizations and across the government. So if that isn't your thing, then you should be aware of that before you go in and put in for an application, because we have had people who apply and then realize they need to get a security clearance, and they're like, well, that's not what I want to do. It's like, okay, well, you didn't do any homework then. So highly concur with my colleagues that understanding and spending the time ahead of time to reach out, get informed, and be aware so that everyone's time is valued during an interview is critical. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
No, say the same. To definitely do the homework. Even before, like I mentioned, I didn't have any experience, with the government or foreign travel or anything about that, and then applied to Department of State. So I did some reading ahead of time, and then part of our interviewing process is following, what the Foreign Service is looking for in candidates, and we have our list of our 12 dimensions of qualities and attributes that we're looking for our candidates to have. And one of those is cultural adaptability. And that's, one thing where if a lot of people don't read about the process or read about, what we're looking for in those 12 dimensions, they're missing a huge opportunity to make an impact and to show how they've been cultural, adapted to other cultures, or how they any experiences overseas can contribute, or volunteer work in their local communities, things like that. That show public service are going to really help out with that interview process. So again, just recommend do the homework to understand the process.
Thanks. That's a great point. One more thing that I'll ask then is, we've been talking about largely your academic preparation, but how about other things that you might have done? Because, Jason just brought up the idea that cultural adaptation is really important to working in the State Department. And Elvis talked about the intricacies of dealing with the military hierarchy. So are there things that people can do that aren't academic that make a difference in working for your organization? Valerie.
Yes, one of the things that that I love about working at Space Systems Command and just being on the military base altogether, we're really we do a lot of our presentations, of course, to the military. So we're always talking to leadership. But one of the things that I really love so much about the intricacies of working with civilian and the military is that we have what is called a wingman. And so occasionally what we'll do is we'll have these wingman days where we just take a day of rest. And that day of rest is you're taking 2 or 3 hours in the morning to just have some classes. You could pick whatever classes you want. They put a plethora of classes out there. Some could be, you know, how do you manage just being, you know, stress-free environment? How do you manage your health? And then that afternoon, what we do is we go on a hike. We go to play video games or things like that. So I love the camaraderie that they try to instill in us to just take time to just kind of relax a little bit and realize that we're all working together. And then another thing that we do too is that they also allow you, they give you 3 hours worth of 3 hours to do exercise. We have a great gym on the base. We have a track. We have some of the best aerobic instructors and the best classes that you can be part of. And they actually give you 3 hours to do it. So a week. And what I usually do is I'll take an hour and a half for lunch. So I break my 3 hours into 1/2 increments. So, and also they promote diversity, which is what I really like, is the fact that they do promote diversity. And as a female engineer, they're so far and in between on the base where I work. So I'm really interested in getting more female engineers out there and just more diversity in the workplace. So that's one thing that I've noticed that they are really working hard to do. So that's just another thing that I love so much about working for the government and working at my facility.
Yeah, I have to say that when I was going to school, which was a long time ago, I was usually the only woman in my classes. And teaching at Cal Poly Pomona in electrical and computer engineering, one of the things that I'm notorious for amongst my students is I'll give a first day prerequisite quiz. And during that quiz, I'll count the number of women and the number of left-handers in class. It turns out that historically Cal Poly Pomona has been terrible at gender diversity in engineering. So we had about 7% women for a long time. And the percentage of left-handers in the population is also about 7%. So at the end of the prerequisite quiz, I would announce whether we had passed my gender diversity criterion for that class for that term. Deborah.
Thank you. So you asked about other activities, and I just wanted to say that if you had a consistent involvement that relates to your professional expertise, you definitely need to highlight that when you interview. Even if it doesn't directly relate, but say you've been involved with a church group or some other kind of activity, I think that long-term commitment that you've made to the community you're part of, is also important to let the interview panel know. And just carrying out what Valerie said, we've made a real commitment to try to have our workforce reflect the community that we serve. And so we definitely hire primarily from local schools, and we're blessed with a plethora of local engineering schools, and local ranging from San Diego to Santa Barbara, and a plethora of local architecture schools. So we're really working hard to have our staff reflect the community who we serve and who we interact with. And there is the numbers for women engineers and architects aren't great in the schools. The number for Black engineers and architects, we make a real effort to connect with the historically Black universities across the country, because we're just trying our hardest to have the diversity in our department increase, be better than it has in the past. So it's a great moment. If you bring that to the table, it's a great moment for from a government perspective. And I noticed that when I left the private sector and came into government, it was so much more diverse. And there were so many more leadership positions filled by women and people from different backgrounds. And that's one of the other great advantages of working for government, which people don't talk about all that often. The diversity is just enriching and enlivening, and it makes for a very interesting workplace. Thank you.
Thanks. Elvis?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So I guess what I'll add on is a little bit of soul searching is kind of highly encouraged. And what I mean by that is understanding your weaknesses and trying to fill in those gaps that you don't necessarily get in your undergraduate education is really encouraged. And it's a great thing to be seen during an interview. So if you happen to take elements outside of your curriculum to try and strengthen up those soft points in your resume through like LinkedIn Learning or Coursera, those things are really seen as an added value. You may not be a rock star at them yet, but it really shows that you're trying to shore up those weak points, and it means a lot that you're into additional learning. The other thing I'll add on is that communication is critical. Being able to convey what you want to do, how you're going to translate what you've learned into what you can do, having your elevator speech down, meaning, in 60 seconds to 120 seconds, can you clearly articulate what you want to do and what you desire to do and how you're going to better wherever you're applying for whatever position you're applying for. Because if you can't, then you should spend some time doing that. Because when they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, you don't want to start with, well, I like to paint if you're an engineer, or maybe you do, depending on how that translates to engineering. If you can make that connection, then that's important. But if you're going to stumble through that, then clearly you haven't spent enough time with your own story to be able to narrate that to others. Over.
Thanks a lot. That reminds me of an early mentor in my career who said, when you come in the morning, on Monday morning, spend the first 10 minutes figuring out how you're going to say in 60 seconds what it is you're going to work on this week, because you're going to get asked. Jason.
One other thing that I want to do for let people know about and kind of plug our internship programs as well. The State Department is opening up their internship window now for summer 2022. So depending on the attendees and depending what year you are in your studies, the department has some of the internship opportunities, and they're spread out throughout the department. So depending on which engineering field that it is, you can add all that into your statement of interest of what you're looking for. I had been able to luckily work with interns overseas and see them getting immersed in, the economic and political offices, the consular offices, to get to see, how an embassy operates and see, see the kind of work we do. And there's a number of internship positions in Washington. And then even if it's virtually, just, learn by doing. So I definitely want to plug our internship program. So thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, do you have another comment that you'd like to make?
Yeah, just one other comment. One of the other things that I love about my job is that, we're in the STEM field, so I have opportunities to go to elementary schools. I have opportunities to go to high schools and plug in, what we do as a STEM, and we get to participate in all kinds of different activities. So, I just wanted to take a plug for that, because it's very important that we have the opportunity to interact within the community. This Air Force Base in El Segundo is a huge part of the community, and we're surrounded by a lot of the technical organizations like Northrop Grumman, Northrop and Boeing, And so we're all intermingled in there. So STEM is very important. So if you're interested and you like working with the community and being in the STEM field, we definitely can use you by that as well.
Thank you. We have a question for Mr. Haskins. Engineering will be my second career after being an aircraft technician for 18 years. If I can join the State Department, I'll be 38 when I start. Are there many SEOs who join up as their second career? And are there any extracurricular activities that help your application stand out? For instance, knowing some programming language, time living overseas, things like that.
No, actually, the State Department does become a second career for a lot of veterans who have come out of the military with technical skills. So we have security engineer. You could definitely be able, with the engineering degree and background, you could definitely apply for that. And your military service you do get veteran preference in the hiring process, and you can share some of your experiences living overseas as well, and show that cultural adaptability. So that's all preference there. We also have a security technical specialist position that does not require an engineering degree. Just requires 3 years of specialized experience doing technician related duties, which you may also be qualified for. So definitely want to plug that as well. And that's on our career site as well. But that position works directly with the engineering officers as well, and helps us maintain all our programs, all our inventory, do board level repairs, help plan projects, and really contribute to the mission that way as well. So definitely want to add that as well. And the State Department has foreign service specialists as well, depending on whether it's IT or facility managers. So some of the positions do require that extra levels of experience. So it is common for it to be a second career. So definitely recommend to learn more about that.
Thank you. And we have somebody who's saying, thank you again for your time. If we have any additional questions, is there a contact list so that we could follow up with each panelist? And I'll ask that of Catherine.
I can always put you in touch with the panelist, or the panelist can let me know it's okay to share their information. And I put my email address in the chat box, and it'll be in the follow-up email that I send with the recording of today's session.
Thank you very much. Dr. Norman, do you have any questions for the panelists that I haven't thought of?
Well, I wanted to add to, Catherine, if the panelists are willing to share their contact information, that will go out in the email to everyone who attends or everyone who is registered to attend. So there is that additional reach. And I want to encourage those, in attendance to tell their friends who missed, to definitely look for the YouTube link so they can just gain from the wisdom that we've heard here today. One thing that I encourage my students to do is, think of a realistic preview of what the job is like. And I considered the State Department when I was graduating from undergrad, and also ended up going into corporate America, where I got to fly to Maine and to do the job for free, but just see what the job was like for Procter & Gamble, and that was helpful. So I'm wondering if each of the panelists, and one other thing I guess I wanted to talk about is with the Cal State system, I've created a job shadowing program where some of our students in the CSU, we haven't had anyone from Pomona, so you can get the word out there, but we have at Fullerton Northridge now joined Dominguez Hills in shadowing over the course of the semester IT professionals, finance professionals, HR professionals, just to really see what these jobs are like. So if each of the panelists could, imagine you were hosting a job shadow virtually via Zoom or in person, if that were practical. What do you think, thinking back to your first week or month on the job, what places would you want to take this person? What experiences would you want them to see so they could have that experience I had up in Portland, Maine, of really feeling what it was like to get in the field, talk to people running grocery stores, to drugstores, getting in and out of the car, and representing an employer like P&G. But what might that look for a student who would be able to job shadow at your organization?
Great. Valerie.
Well, what I'd like to do is working with the satellites, I would love to take them to one of our contractors' facility and have them walk along the high bay and see the type of equipment that we actually work to and actually see a satellite up front, up close. And also I would take them to a launch range so they can actually see the rocket that we put the satellite on top. I don't know if many people know this, but I didn't know this until I started working for the government and realizing that the satellite sits right on top of the rocket at the very top. It took a while for me to figure that one out when I was working in the satellite industry, but I would totally do that. And then to let them know that even though we are, and I have to just say, government people are paper pushers. We push papers. Everybody pushes papers. But the thing about it is that you still are able to get hands-on the equipment that you are, as we are as an acquisition house at Space Systems Command, that we are able to still go out and look at the items that we're actually procuring. And so we can actually go and look at the satellites and go and look at the rockets and look at all the different processing that we do to integrate the rocket with the satellite. So that's what I would definitely do. And that would be as an intern or as a person that's coming out of college or that's in college, I would be totally excited just to be able to know that I can have hands-on in doing something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember my first summer after I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, I had a summer job working for Hughes Aircraft, and that was when Pioneer Venus was being built. So I actually was working in the high bay while the satellite was being constructed, watching the tests in the environmental chambers, things like that, and just recognizing the incredible amount of professionalism and attention to detail that's required to put something in space. It's amazing. Jason.
Thanks. Thanks for the question there. On for a job shadow, definitely show you kind of first what we do in Washington, how kind of all eyes here in Washington are spread out looking at all we do around the world. So we have our overseas operations branch, and they're helping out all the embassies overseas, getting the materials they need, the support they need, making sure they're staffed. And really, and what our overall program management concepts are for how we meet our quarterly performance marks, and how all the officers are contributing to that. But would be awesome to actually take someone overseas to you almost throw a dart on the map and say, all right, let's go to the nearest embassy, to take them in there and show what the U.S. Embassy does on a daily basis. I mean, overseas you see the lines of people applying for visas to come to the U.S. to work and to live, and see how we're contributing to that. See how our economic officers, how they're putting reports, reporting on local elections, seeing what we're doing, seeing what's going on in other countries and how that affects U.S. interests there. Seeing our public diplomacy people out there spreading, we brought in, celebrities or sports and volunteers. We brought astronauts to speak to local schools there, to represent, U.S. there. So just to show kind of the overall work that the State Department does. And then, I would like to, find one of our probably, kind of the dirtiest, most unorganized electrical closets, with dust and all that, and show you that and say, yeah, we might need to work in there too. So thanks.
Thank you. Bill.
Dr. Nelson. So prior to COVID, we used to have tours for the general public of our aqueduct system. And I think those tours are extremely valuable. They see what it takes to bring in water from the Colorado River, how we have to secure water rights, how we have to get energy to pump it 240 miles across the desert, how we have to maintain this aqueduct every year by refurbishing it, an aqueduct that's almost 100 years old. How when the water comes into Southern California, we have to treat it with the state-of-the-art treatment, that regulations that are constantly changing to make sure it's the purest product that we can possibly provide. We have to then maintain a distribution system through our entire region, from Ventura County down to San Diego, seeing all of the people involved, all of the how 1,800 employees at MWD are all involved in ensuring that when a customer turns on his or her tap, pure clean water is there. And seeing that and actually seeing how you move this heavy resource across the desert by people that built the aqueduct in the depths of the Great Depression, and that's still one of Southern California's most vital assets today. I think it's a pretty humbling experience. Now, unfortunately, we don't have tours right now, but our website does have a virtual tour of both the Colorado River Aqueduct and the State Water Project. If you go to www.mwdh2o.com, you can find those virtual tours. And then when tours are back, if you can get an opportunity to go on one, I would highly recommend it.
Thanks. I have been on one of them, and they're really great. Elvis.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. So though it wouldn't be feasible for someone without a clearance to do it, what I would like to do is one of the missions for Corona is to do assessment of tactics and performance. So what we would do is you design out a scenario based on the intelligence received on some sort of foreign threat, and you actually go to sea to do the implementation of tactics, do an analysis and an assessment of the performance of missiles being fired at live targets coming inbound. You do all the technical instrumentation, getting differential GPS of the inbound profiles. You collect all the environmental data, all the target data, all the actual telemetry data coming off of the missiles, crunch all that data, do a great visualization, report out on whether or not the defense contractor is meeting the requirements, and you do some assessment on it, and then you turn that around and then do an evaluation. So all that takes normally, it can take up to a year, depending on the complexity of the overall assessment, whether it's one target against one missile, or whether it's many missiles and many guns and layered defense, and whether it's surface and a ballistic missile, or whether it's hypersonic, or whether it's subsonic. I mean, the complexity is extreme. So those kinds of events really stretch the boundaries of multiple disciplines of engineering, and we all come together to do enormous amount of planning and assessment. It's a lot of fun, actually. So over.
Great, Deborah.
So your question had to do with kind of an ideal job shadowing experience. And our summer internship program is structured to provide that exposure to the range of activities that you might be involved with. So you might start with sitting in a team working session who's at the conceptual stage of a project, who are talking through all of the technical parameters and the community objectives and the objectives of the council office and the mayor's office, all of which results in what we call a pre-design report. We then take people on hard hat tours of construction projects. So you might do a hard hat tour of the construction that's taking place for the 6th Street Viaduct. You might do a hard hat tour of a major sewer construction project. You might do a hard hat tour. We're renovating an old theater in Leimert Park called the Vision Theater, which it's a phenomenal building. We're updating it to be a really state-of-the-art performance space. So a hard hat tour is definitely part of the exposure. Then we might take you to City Hall to sit in on a board meeting, the Board of Public Works meeting, who is our oversight agency. Every contract we issue, every amendment we make, you have to report to the board and get concurrence and direction from them. We might also take you to a city council meeting and expose you to the discussions from our political policymakers who set the direction for the projects we do. And then the other thing we would take you to is to a grand opening. So after all of that effort, 2 or 3 years, we go out into the field. Lately, we've been doing a lot of grand openings for tiny home villages for the unhoused, which are projects that we're doing phenomenally quickly to help people move off the street and begin a transition in their lives. So the grand openings are always important to go at. There's usually all our political, our policy leaders are there. The mayor was at the last one I went to. The council member for that district was there, but also the nonprofit who's going to operate this this shelter was there, and two community members who had moved into a shelter that we had finished shortly before that were also there just to talk about the impact it had on their lives. So that's kind of the range of what you see. We'd also put you on a desk doing CAD, actually doing drawings, engineering drawings, architectural drawings, reviewing submittals from contractors. So you see some of the type of work, the detail work that you also have to be capable of doing. So that's kind of the exposure I think ideally a job shadowing would have.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, I don't see any further questions from the participants. I'm going to turn things over, I think, to Dr. Norman to
Okay, well,
follow
thank
up.
you. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. That it was fantastic. We don't need to take all of the time that we have allotted. Make the observation for those watching and those that are going to watch, pay close attention to all the smiles I see, right? So one of the things I hope that viewers will get a sense of is the culture. And this is a profession where there can be some really deep satisfaction. And I think with millennials, Gen Z, we're hearing what might be admired more is not wealth, right? Because some of you have talked about it's not really the best career to get wealthy and make a ton of money compared to the private sector. But what about the satisfaction, the sense of duty, serving your community, serving society, a greater purpose, and even freedom of time? The other thing you're talking about is the protection of probably the whole person. So in corporate America, you might make more, but you might work 80 hours. And we get a sense this is a career where you can know your family will know you. You might be able to read a book every 2 weeks. You might be able to engage in hobbies. So that's just kind of an observation I wanted to share why an engineering career for any of your agencies might really be something that a viewer should explore. And I appreciate those of you who've provided your emails or contact information in the chat. So some of those watching within the next few months can actually contact and do what I recommend, have an informational interview, try to get 15 minutes of time or at least an email exchange, asking those questions to just get a sense, let me see what this culture is like. I know how delighted I was to visit one of my students, Justina Ip at SpaceX, to see Elon Musk truly doesn't have an office. He has a double cube. Other people get one cube, but he doesn't have an office. The only people with offices are the engineers working on the rocket because they had to stack cubes, right? They assigned the top of the rocket to a team, the middle and the bottom. So in a sense, you had to have an office because you can't stack cubes, but they really were keeping that culture. And each of you have given a little bit of an insight into the organizations. If you don't think SpaceX and Elon Musk is for you, maybe Space Force. So those are kind of my concluding remarks. I now need to thank our moderator. I'll begin with you, Dr. Nelson. Thank you for giving up your morning to take your disciplinary expertise and guide us through meeting these wonderful individuals. Of course, I want to thank each and every one of the panelists, but at this time, I want to single out my co-chair, Catherine Hansen-Kim, for her excellent work in recruiting you. We need to thank the marvelous Edward Venegas, who does all the technical stuff. And, we always seem to have a little issue here. So thank you, Edward. I need to thank SCAG for their role in just sponsoring this whole program, as well as the Volker Alliance, who asked us to co-chair this effort to give a little taste of what careers in the federal, county, local level are like for all of you. And with that, I'll give my co-chair, Catherine Hansen-Kim, the last words. So thank you for attending, everyone.
I don't really have anything to say, just you all get an email, and I'm always a resource for federal agencies, and I can help connect you to any of the panelists. And I personally want to thank each of the panelists for accepting our request to have you share your expertise with our future public service workforce. And if I could ever return the favor, let me know. Thank you. Good day.